Hello, my friends, and welcome. So, you've been thinking about fasting. Fasting has come into your sphere of awareness. Okay, maybe you've heard about fasting on a podcast, maybe you've read it in a book, maybe, a friend of yours has mentioned it. I'll start off by saying that I am no expert in fasting. Okay, I have some history with fasting. I've done a handful of 24-hour fasts, maybe less than a handful of 36 hours. But recently, I did my first multi-day fast. Okay, so this was last weekend and it was a 3-day fast. Now there's many reasons why people would fast or want to fast, okay? And they predominantly fall into two categories. That's either health or spiritual. For me, the reason why I did my 3-day fast was for health reasons, but as I progressed through the weekend, it turned more into spiritual reasons, or there was certainly a spiritual element to it all. So before we get into my 3 tips for you to conquer your multi-day fast, I want to share a little bit about my story and how those 3 days went, because those 3 days are what helped me arrive at these 3 tips for you. Okay, so that first 24 hours, the first day, the initial 24 hours, it wasn't really that difficult. There was moments where my body was reminding me like, oh, you haven't eaten today, and they just came out of seemingly thin air. Hey, you haven't eaten today. And it's like, oh, wait, I'm fasting, not eating today. Like, go away, body. This is a challenge of the mind. And that was that. It really wasn't that difficult the first 24 hours. Even seeing my kids eat and my family eat, I sat with them at dinner and it was just, I was doing this thing and I made the decision. And when, me personally, when I make a decision, it's very easy to go with it. Day two was also not that difficult, not as difficult as I thought it would be. And I've heard, I did some reading about fasting. They say the first 24 hours is the most difficult. After that, your body's sort of like maybe your mind just accepts it, or maybe your body, is in that state of ketosis and it's actually using fat for fuel. Okay, so not going to talk fully about that, but if you're into fasting, you've probably heard of that term or that word, ketosis. Third day was the most challenging, I would say. Again, it wasn't too hard. It wasn't like I was really jonesing or just thinking about food nonstop. I did start to have some food fantasies. And once I knew that the fast was coming to an end, I'm on that third day and there's only 6 hours left, it was almost like my body was just like waiting for that next meal. And I did have the most struggle out of the 3 days. But it was only really since I knew that the end was near, that those sort of cravings really started to become powerful. So there were moments through those 3 days where it was like, oh, food would be nice. And I start craving different things. And at those moments, it was like, you know what, I'm fasting, I'm doing this thing, change the channel. Okay, think about something different. And that worked. Okay, so let's talk about the 3 tips. The first tip is the most important one, and it actually doesn't need much explaining. And that is have a why. If you have a strong why in anything you're doing, whatever goal you have, if your why is strong, the means will be very easy. The obstacles, you'll breeze right over them or through them, okay? Have a strong why. As I mentioned, this one doesn't require much explaining. Have a strong why, you'll get through. Tip number 2 is have a mantra, okay? Now this one I'm going to explain a little bit further. And somewhere in day 2, an old book that I read and reread some years ago called Siddhartha popped into my mind. And Siddhartha had this sort of ethos or this motto or saying or mantra that he followed to help him progress in his spiritual journey. And on day 2, this is where my 3-day fast became more of a spiritual endeavor than health. For the record, when I say that I started out for health reasons, I was hoping that the fast would reduce inflammation in my body, dealing with a bit of an illness, injury, more so an illness caused by inflammation in the body. So I was trying to get that in order. Day 2, as I mentioned, is when things became more spiritual, and the book Siddhartha pops into my mind. So in Siddhartha, he has this mantra: I can think, I can wait, I can fast. And it's actually quite comical, quite humorous, when he says this to others and how they react. It happens a few times in the book. Well, let me just give you a little bit of background on Siddhartha. So Siddhartha is the main character in the book, and the book is called Siddhartha, okay? It takes place in ancient India, okay? And Siddhartha comes from a priestly caste. So in ancient India, they had a caste system, much like a feudal system or a royal system, what have you. And he was at the top of the chain. So Siddhartha has a very similar story to the Buddha, and the Buddha actually appears in this book. And I actually think the book Siddhartha is supposed to like mirror the Buddha's path in real life. So Siddhartha leaves his priestly caste and he goes into the forest with the ascetics, and he renounces all his worldly possessions, and he meditates, and he goes on this deep path to discover his true self. And at one point in the book, Siddhartha goes in to the village or the city, all right, and he meets, just upon entering the city after months and months in the forest, he sees this beautiful woman, and he like instantly falls in love with her. So he's trying to woo this girl, but he's a poor beggar, so he needs to make money. So he's trying to get a job, and he finds this merchant, one of the best merchants in the village. And he approaches and engages the merchant and inquires about a job, and the merchant says, okay, you've come for work. What skills do you have? And he says again in his merry Siddhartha self, I can think, I can wait, and I could fast. And the merchant's a little bit harder, right? He's a businessman. He laughs instantly at Siddhartha. He says, you can think, you could wait, you could fast. Like, dude, are you serious? What good is fasting? So this is how Siddhartha replies to the merchant, and I will quote directly. Fasting is a great skill, sir. When a person has nothing to eat, fasting is the smartest thing he could do. If, for example, I hadn't learned to fast, I would have to accept any kind of service before this day is up, whether with you or wherever, because hunger would force me to do so. But as it stands, I can wait calmly. I know no impatience. I know no emergency. I can allow hunger to besiege me for a long time and can laugh about it. This, sir, is what fasting is good for. So, Siddhartha, you can see the humor in him, right? But what he's saying is quite true, right? And he uses his fasting and his thinking and his impatience, and he sort of sums it up all right there quite clearly. And I thought this was brilliant when I read the book, and I said, I want to start, living by that mantra as well. And during day 2 of this fast, when I'm sitting there now starting to think more and more about food, I channeled my inner Siddhartha. I can think, I can wait, and I can fast. 3 of the greatest virtues, in my opinion. So that was the mantra that carried me through my 3 days. And when that mantra popped into my mind, the fast took on more of a spiritual flavor, okay? And it really helped get me through. In those moments where it was like, oh, this is tough, it's like, I can think, I can wait, I can fast. So get a mantra. Okay, and tip number 3, final tip, is learn to change the channel. This requires a little bit of mastery of self and mastery of thoughts. Not completely masterable. You'll never be able to control your thoughts, but you can recognize them when they come to fruition, and if you don't like them, you can change them, okay? That much we do control. So whenever you do have food cravings, and you will start to get food cravings or some self-doubt or some inner self-justification of reasons why this fast isn't a good idea and why you should quit, whenever that stuff starts to creep in, change the channel. I'm an 80s baby, born in 86, so pretty much raised through the 90s. And if you were raised through the 90s, you remember a thing called channel surfing. So this is way before streaming for all you youngins. But the way that we would find something pleasurable to watch is we would sit in front of the TV and with the remote just click through, right? Until we found something. And if we didn't like what we were watching, we'd simply change the channel. Treat your thoughts like that, right? When you're having moments, not if, when you are having moments where you want to quit or where you're having food fantasies and it's getting difficulty, change the channel. Think about something else, okay? Think about your goals, think about your lover, think about something you're grateful for, okay? Anything. Just stop thinking about food or else you'll be suffering. All right, so if you made it to this point in the video, well, thank you for watching. Good luck if you are fasting. Big shout out to our patrons, as always. And if you liked the video, you found value, give it a big fat like, and maybe even subscribe. I don't know. That's up to you. I encourage you to, though. All right, I hope you're having a great day, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.